You're listening to Creative Celebrations on Big Blend Radio with Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith. We're the editors of CreativeCelebrationsMagazine.com, which is one of our 10 Big Blend magazines. If you go to BigBlendMagazines.com, you can find them all right there. And our next guest is Kate Harrison. She's the author of the best-selling Green Wedding book. It's called The Green Bride Guide, How to Plan an Earth-Friendly Wedding on Any Budget. I like this, on any budget, because everyone thinks as soon as it's going to be green, oh my gosh, everything's going to go, $10,000 more. The book is available on Amazon.com, but go right to her website. Her website is an entire guide. I mean, it really is. Go to greenbrideguide.com. I mean, to me, if you're going to get married, this is the resource to go to. Kate, it's good to have you on the show. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so flattered by what you just said. Thank you.
Well, no, I think that if you're going to, we were just saying earlier, when a unity, it's a union between two people, and it should be out of love, and not thinking about the planet kind of gets a little negative to me. That's just my own personal thing. I think it's important to think about all of it. It's like you're taking a good step forward in your new life, but you do it on a sustainable way. Don't be... do what you can, and it's interesting how you even got your start writing the book and then founding this website. Give us a little bit of history on that.
Yes, I mean, I think you really are, right on the money. I think that weddings are about long-term thinking and a long-term future, and when you're thinking about that and having children and grandchildren with somebody, you should be thinking about the planet as part of that celebration. Because, we need to preserve it. So I started writing the book really when my husband and I got engaged. We met at the Yale School of Forestry, so we were already sort of thinking in this direction, and that was it. We were just trying to plan a wedding that was really in line with our values and beliefs, and it was a lot harder to do than I thought it should be.
And when it comes to the budget part, because even in your book you said how to plan an earth-friendly wedding on any budget, as soon as you think organic or sustainable, you think it's really going to cost so much more. And I think sometimes you just, if it's going to stretch your budget, or just make a different choice, right?
Yeah, budget is a huge issue, especially in this economy, and this is a big focus of the book and also of our website, that making simple substitutions often can decrease the cost of your wedding significantly. So we've shown that you can save up to 40% off the cost of your wedding, or on average, between $11,000 and $20,000 by going green. And I can give you some examples. I mean, it's a really amazing amount of money. Sorry, can you hear me? I feel like the line is... Okay.
Yeah.
So, one of the examples I use from my own wedding is the flowers. Now, the average couple spends about $2,000 on flowers. They are most likely grown in South America or Africa in a hothouse or on these big flower farms, and they are doused in pesticides. They are really... They're not regulated because we don't eat them, so they just cover them in pesticides. They're then shipped in from overseas, so you have the carbon footprint as well, the global warming issue. And, they're just not produced in a way that's good for people or the planet. Our wedding,
you never think about the pesticides of cut flowers. You think, oh, beautiful cut flowers. And sometimes, and I'm wondering this, sometimes flowers don't even smell like they're supposed to smell.
I'm glad you mentioned
fake
that.
Fragrance. They
a lot of
flowers.
companies actually they spray flowers with fragrance. So there's also the chemical fragrance added to a lot of flowers because they are, grown for their look and durability as opposed to their scent or, the lushness of them. So sourcing local flowers that are in season is a great way to get something that's fresh, that doesn't have that carbon footprint, and also if you can get organic, it's sustainable. So we, for our wedding, ended up using hydrangeas and dahlias. It was in fall, and we bought everything from a local flower farm. The entire cost of the flowers for our wedding was $200.
Compared to the $2,000.
Yeah. So then I ended up hiring somebody to do the arrangements. And again, we just saved a tremendous amount of money, and the flowers were beautiful, and they were fresh, and they were fragrant, and they were fabulous.
Wow. That's really interesting to me. And, the other thing is, when you start looking at even the clothing, the bridal gowns and things like that, and some part of me goes, okay, because even these days, going to buy clothes, you start to wonder, where are these clothes coming from? And then you've got, hey, wait a minute, are they coming from a sweatshop in, Asia somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's the green thing and the sustainability is not just always the pesticides and everything that are being used, because even fabric now is getting scary to me. But there's also the side of, wait a minute, there's other people really living in bad conditions and being treated really horribly as well.
Yeah, they're definitely humanitarian issues, and I think especially with wedding gowns. I mean, they're really a one-time use sort of disposable item, and they're made in really abominable conditions. So this is another place where you can also save a tremendous amount of money by going, for example, with a once-worn gown. So, just buying that dress that's been worn once before. It could be the same exact gown, your Vera Wang gown. You can get it at a fraction of the cost.
And you're reusing it. And what about also the materials? Because, and we've had a fashion designer on our show, Aggie Garcia, she comes on all the time, and we were talking about this. Some of the cottons, no, not the cottons, but the fabrics, are really not good for you. And here you are, you could be trying on this gown and they do this fancy stuff, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not wearing the right material, and I'm just wondering on the bridal wear, you could be sitting there thinking, oh, this is all going to be great. And then you put it on to go to your wedding, and next thing you know, you have like hives or something because of the reaction to the fabric.
Yeah, so there are a lot of designers out there that are now using natural materials. So we're seeing organic cottons, we're seeing pea silk, which is an ethically sourced silk. We're seeing hemp silk, which is also really beautiful. It's this really fine silk material. So, and I'm also seeing a lot of designers use recycled material. So one of the designers that comes to mind is Elizabeth St. John, and the underside of her gowns, where all that crinoline is, that's all been used before. It's made out of recycled plastic. So there are a lot of ways to go green for every part of the wedding, and like I said, everything is really better for both you and for the planet and the people making the product. So it's sort of a no-brainer, I think.
Yeah, but no, when you planned your wedding, yeah, it is. It makes sense to me. You're saying in every part of the wedding you can do something. And I think, that's, everyone thinks no. Even when you think about bridal gowns, okay, wait a minute, we do have these options. A lot of times these options were there like maybe 50, 60 years ago, and then they disappeared, and now they're coming back. Are you finding, especially with your website, where, thegreenbrideguide.com, are you finding that manufacturers are starting to change? Are there more options now than there was like maybe 2-3 years ago?
Oh, it's amazing. That's actually one of the reasons I started the website, was that from the time I finished the book, which was early 2008, until it came out, which was at the end of 2008, because they timed it with the wedding engagement season, the number of options had already doubled. And we've seen that basically every year since. We're getting more and more and more options every day, from everything from, caterers who are using organic ingredients, to recycled paper invitation companies, to, green wedding gift registries. There's something out there for everyone, and there are all these different styles and price points. So there's so much choice in the green industry now, and it's really matching that growing demand, I think.
And what about, jewelry? And I want to tell everybody all these tips. We've got a great list from you that will be going up on CreativeCelebrationsMagazine.com. But you started to talk about the jewelry side, and, I was wondering about that, because you start to wonder, okay, is my engagement ring or my wedding ring have a blood diamond in it? How do you protect yourself from that?
Yeah, so the thing about diamonds, and I'm assuming many of your listeners have probably seen the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, because it was so fabulous, and he's so hunky. But the whole idea of a blood diamond, many of the diamonds that are mined, unfortunately, are in these developing countries where they end up fueling civil war. So there are actually some studies out there that say that up to 3.7 million deaths can be traced back to conflict in Africa around diamonds, which is like horrifying. But there are a lot of again, really great options out there. One is a Canadian diamond. So this is what my husband ended up getting me, was a Canadian diamond, and they've put in some pretty significant environmental protections and ways to source and really track the diamonds that they're doing. Vintage diamonds are another way, and talking about saving money, the average ring is about $4,600, and the average vintage ring is about $3,000. So you can get some real savings by using, again, something that's sort of already been mined, and you're not going after anything new. So
I like that because I think that the more money you save, the more you can actually put into your house or whatever your life instead of the one day.
Yeah, or you can splurge on that extra appetizer or the extra fancy sweet or whatever it is. It frees up some other parts of your budget. But the other thing about rings I should add while we're talking about them is the actual mining waste from the metals. And I always feel like I'm the bearer of bad news, right? It's like all these things that are so beautiful that we enjoy are really bad for the environment. But the good news is there are, again, these so many substitutions where you don't have to sacrifice style. So the average wedding ring, the gold for one ring, produces 20 tons of mining waste.
Wow.
But that said, gold is incredibly easy to melt down. So is silver, so is platinum. So you can get a ring made out of recycled metal. And there are actually companies online like Green Carat where you can send in pieces of jewelry from your family, like, those earring sets where you only have one earring or whatever. You can send it in and they'll turn it into your wedding ring for you, and they give you a discount for the gold. So I think that's pretty neat.
I think I agree with you on that, and we've been through a lot of mining communities ourselves here, and you see what happens, and they do have reclamation and all of that, and it takes years for that land to come back. It does actually come back. I've never seen it 100% come back because just of my age, but really, but it is Nancy and I, we do so much on what's happening with our national parks across the country, and you see places like the Grand Canyon, and we just had this huge thing going on where they're trying to mine right outside the Grand Canyon for uranium, and the taxpayers end up in this country. We're not even going overseas yet, but it's mostly overseas people mining it. The taxes that we pay as society are going into cleaning up all these tailings that are really toxic. We're cleaning it up. And guess what? Not $1 of that money comes back into our stream. Nothing, half of these companies just come in and start mining and then they bail, and they're not even using, local people to help them.
Yeah, companies from overseas.
And at least in our country, they're cleaning it up. In a lot of other countries, they just leave it. So that's another issue.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. Right. Yeah, we live in South Africa.
No, yeah. So But that's sad. Even in South Africa, there are a number of companies. I think Pride Diamonds is the one that's based in South Africa that have really taken significant steps to build communities that are sustainable around the diamond mining industry. So they support education and women's health, and put those environmental standards in place. So there are a lot of efforts being made to produce clean diamonds, and the Kimberley process certainly has helped as well in terms of sourcing and tracking.
No, you're right on that, definitely. Now, what about, you've got your jewelry, now you've got your dress. What about what you're going to wear? And it was interesting because in your article about this, you say, avoid permanent hair dyes. Okay, what does hair dye have to do with the environment?
Well, so anything...
I've never dyed my hair.
Sorry,
I've just never done it.
Everyone is touching their heads probably right now. The thing about not just hair dye, all beauty products, because they're on the outside of our bodies, the amount of regulation that goes into them is so minimal, it's shocking. So, and I'm going to move away from hair dye, but I promise I'll come back to it. But I just read this study that says, the average woman eats about 4 pounds of lipstick in her lifetime. And if you think about what's in it, there's lead in it. There are all these heavy metals and toxins in lipsticks because it's not considered a food, so it's not regulated by the FDA. Although if you think about it, you put it on, where does it go? It's gone.
Your skin is your largest organ.
Yeah. It is absorbed right into your system through your skin is where it goes.
Yeah, and anything that isn't going into your skin is getting washed away. You get in the shower and it goes down the drain. So all of those chemicals are going right into our water system. And that's where the environmental pollution comes in.
Well, we just need to send you to the FDA because they apparently don't understand that concept.
Don't start.
Well, I recommend actually for anybody who's interested in this particular topic. I always say when I leave the Green Bride Guide eventually, I'd like to go work for the Environmental Working Group. They are doing an amazing job. They have this thing called the Skin Deep database, and you can look up all of your beauty products, your lipsticks, your eyeshadows, everything, and you can see your deodorant in particular. You can see how toxic they are on a scale of 1 to 10, and then you can look and browse for the less toxic version. So it's a really wonderful resource.
Ooh, and your deodorant, because that really will suck up everything.
But I wouldn't go for the crystal deodorants. I still use a real deodorant, but you can get one of the less toxic versions.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So the hair. I want to hear about the dye.
Yeah, hair dye has ammonia, it has bleach, it has all sorts of chemicals in there. So when you're using that dye and then you think about it, you rinse it down the drain. Again, it's just going right into the drain, and there are more sustainable alternatives like you can use, especially if you're going to go darker or richer, you can use a henna-based dye or a natural dye.
Ooh, henna's cool.
I love henna.
Yeah, it's good for your hair. It's got nutrients.
Yeah, supposedly it actually enriches it. I mean, I don't know that much about it, but
it's supposed to be very, very healthy.
Nancy loves henna.
I love henna.
Yes, she's
like
and they have it in a whole bunch of different colors, seemingly. So.
Yeah, they do.
Everything tends to be a little orangey red, though.
Yeah, right.
If you want to be a redhead, henna's for you.
Yeah, that's it. And if you've got white hair, don't do it. You'll end up looking like Carrot Top.
Oh, God.
It's true.
Hopefully not the face, too. But everybody really go get natural products, okay, period.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to, you talk about destination weddings became a big deal. People start flying into different places, and families are having to fly everywhere. How bad is that when it comes to destination weddings?
So every 1,000 miles that you fly releases 500 pounds of CO2 into the atmosphere. And it's hard to kind of quantify that in your mind, but just to add it up, the amount of carbon dioxide from weddings every year in the United States is the equivalent of 8.3 million cars on the road.
Wow.
So it's a lot of carbon dioxide. That's why we really encourage couples to think about trying to choose a location that's central to the majority of their guests. Mm-hmm. And no matter where you have your wedding, you can always buy carbon offsets. And we actually have a calculator on Green Bride Guide where you can put in the number of guests and how far they're flying, and you can calculate right there sort of what the footprint's going to be.
Wow. That's
cool.
Interesting. That's really neat. You said,
and it's not very expensive, I should add, to offset. My husband and I did it for our wedding, and it turned out to be, I think it was less than $2 a guest. So and we ended up giving it as a favor. In their honor, we offset the carbon from the travel.
Interesting. So now, what about when people do fly and all of that? So now you're looking at, so now we're going to get transport from the airport to the wedding, and then you have to have the ceremony, then we're going to go to the rehearsal. It's like, here you go. Everybody starts floating everywhere.
Yeah. So it depends where you are, but a lot of parts of the country now have hybrid vehicles or alternative fuel vehicles that you can rent. Like you could get a biodiesel bus to move your guests around. You can also try to choose a location where you can get easily to it by public transportation, because obviously that is a very green form of transportation. And trying to choose one location where you can have the ceremony and reception, in addition to decreasing, again, the carbon footprint, it also decreases your cost because you don't have the extra fee. And I like to point out it allows your guests to drink heavily, so that's nice.
It's like Amtrak. Take Amtrak with your own cooler.
Exactly.
I like that. I don't know why. Why do we always start talking about cocktails? And you started it. Today we've been good here.
Well, they're ubiquitously loved, and there are organic cocktails as well. So we can talk about that too.
Yeah, do you see? Because there's more organics out there now too. When it comes to wines, when it comes to even your food and all of that. So you really can start to look at your food and go, wait, but you can look at the quality of food. Now you think about, now what if you're serving, steak or something like that, and you could get grass-fed beef. Now, isn't that going to be more money than purchasing the pink slime?
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine pink slime wedding? I love it.
Yeah, it's like pretty in pink.
It is. It's one of the areas where it's going to cost more to go green. It costs on average 10 to 20% more to buy organic food. But again, if you've saved money on your flowers, you've saved money on your dress, you've saved money on your favors, you've saved money on your transportation, you've freed up that extra money. And I think that food at a wedding is the most important thing. Not only is it half the budget, so it has sort of half the impact, but it's the thing your guests really remember. They don't remember think about the last wedding you were at. Can you remember the color of the flowers? You probably remember what you ate. So,
I remember what I drank, maybe.
Or what you drank. Yeah.
Maybe.
So I always say it's one of those areas where it's really worth splurging. And if you get that local grass-fed beef, it's going to be delicious. That's actually what my husband and I had at our wedding. And people are literally still coming up to me and telling me how good the food was at our wedding. It was awesome.
And, it's kind of neat because when people go to an event like that, okay, or wedding, and maybe they're not doing that at home, or like even vegetarianism and all of that, and then they go to something like that, it's like, okay, you're not going to not eat at the wedding unless you're allergic to something, right? And they'll go, oh, yeah, steak. Okay, I'm going to eat that. And suddenly they realize, wait a minute, grass-fed beef does have flavor,
Yeah.
People are scared about it. So in some ways, you're turning people on to a better lifestyle.
Definitely, and I think especially if you go with a sort of seasonal and regional cuisine, which is another way to add kind of a unique flavor to your wedding. So instead of the old chicken and salmon, I always say, like, if you're in the South, do barbecue. If you're in New England, serve lobster. I mean, go with your regional cuisine, and it's going to be really fresh. It's going to be really delicious. And you're right. I mean, you come to a wedding and you also see it makes you think about the season. So I mean, we served, mushroom bisque and sweet potatoes and all these things that were seasonal for fall in New England, and the meal was amazing, and it was all local.
Oh, I like that. I want some mushroom bisque. And then we're here in Tucson, and it's warm already. It feels like summer, but I'm still wanting mushroom bisque now. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, that does sound good.
I know, right? And now, okay, so now you've also got the entertainment side, and I think this is something interesting because a lot of people don't think about entertainment being sustainable, but it can be.
Yeah, so some entertainment is sort of naturally eco-friendly. If you're getting a trio or something, and then acoustic music obviously has no environmental impact really. But you can also work with like if you're getting a DJ or using an iPod or whatever, you can use LED light. Like a lot of these companies use LED lighting. They offset their own travel. They may have used equipment. They may move their stuff around again in some sort of greener form of transportation. So there are things that any company can do, your photographer, the music that's being supplied, to decrease their overall impact.
Yeah, this is good.
And then you wear a green bridal dress.
There it is. Yeah, bridal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should add that we talked about the wedding gown, but we didn't really talk about the men or the bridesmaids. And this is another thing that makes a big difference. I mean, we've all now seen 27 dresses as well. There are a lot of bridesmaids dresses out there that never get worn again, and they're expensive for your bridesmaids. And letting them wear something. I always encourage brides to think about choosing one color and letting bridesmaids, wear something they own or something they'll definitely wear again that they choose. There are also companies where you can rent bridesmaids dresses, so it's a fraction of the cost for them, and they can just ship them back, which I think is really clever.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think because sometimes you end up as a bridesmaid wearing this big old bubble and foofy, like, blow up
that you don't look good at.
Your sleeves are all puffed up, and it's something you can't wear. I think people almost cringe when they're asked to be a bridesmaid because it's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to be in photos everywhere, and I'm going to look like this big, balloon.
Right, I'm going to spend $1,000 to look awful, right?
Right.
The worst.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of ways to mitigate that. And then no matter what you do, there's also green dry cleaning. So for men, they can wear their own suit or, rent a tux, and then it can be dry cleaned in an eco-friendly way. And also after the wedding, you can donate a lot of these things. So if you are sort of forced to buy a dress you don't want, there are a number of organizations for wedding gowns. It's Brides Against Breast Cancer. For bridesmaids gowns, they turn them into prom dresses. So there's, I think it's called the Cinderella Project is one of them. But there are a lot of local organizations that reuse or resell these gowns for a cause. So I think kind of no matter what path you're going down, there's always a way to turn it green, even at the last minute.
Well, I know you've got some great tips, and we haven't been able to cover them all today, but I want to tell everybody again, we're going to be posting this article from Kate up on CreativeCelebrationsMagazine.com. And, of course, I mean, here it is. You've got two sources. You've got greenbrideguide.com to go to. Also, I mean, you've really got thousands of resources on there. I mean, it's like, I think I was reading that it's 1,300 green wedding vendors across the country.
Yeah, and we also spent quite a bit of time working on a green wedding gift registry because that's a really easy way to green your wedding without sacrificing style. You know, register for that luxurious organic bedding that you wouldn't want to splurge on yourself, but your guests are happy to buy you and that will last a lifetime. So we've spent a long time sourcing all of that stuff for everyone as well.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. And, of course, your book, The Green Bride Guide, How to Plan an Earth-Friendly Wedding on Any Budget. Again, you know, Kate has proven here that you can do this on a budget and keep with your budget as well. It's just really the choices you make. So, yeah, you can save on your flowers and have chocolate mousse for dessert and steak.
Sounds good.
Can we have a Bloody Mary bar, too?
Sure. I think there's organic Bloody Mary mix. In fact, I'm almost positive. So there we go.
Right on. I like it. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Take care.
You take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.